And joining me now is Republican presidential candidate, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Governor Haley, it's great to have you here tonight. First, on the major international news today, do you believe that President Putin is directly responsible for Alexei Navalny's death?
Absolutely. I mean, all you have to do is look at his track record. I mean, this is a man who's known to kill his political opponents. We saw him do this with the Skripals in the United Kingdom a few years back when I was at the United Nations. And honestly, Caitlin, that's what was so disturbing about what Donald Trump said in his rally in Conway, South Carolina a week ago, was that he said that he would side with Putin and not defend NATO allies if they weren't pulling their weight. But he went even further than that. And he said that he would encourage Putin to invade any countries not pulling their weight. That means Donald Trump is siding with a thug who kills his political opponents. He's siding with someone who has made no bones about wanting to destroy America. He's siding with someone who arrests American journalists and holds them hostage. And he's siding with a dictator instead of siding with our allies who stood with us at 9/11. It's the problem. But this is exactly the Russia I know. I dealt with them every day at the United Nations. It is a brutal dictatorship. Navalny was a hero. He was trying to call out the corruption. He was trying to call out what Putin did. The fact that he returned back to Russia was nothing short of just amazingly courageous. But he was trying to make a point. And what Putin was doing was trying to make a point in front of the next Russian elections to everybody not to speak up against him. It's a sad day.
You bring up former President Trump. I mean, he has been silent since we learned of Navalny's apparent death. Why do you think he's been completely quiet on this?
You know, it's not up for me to decide why he's being quiet. The problem is anybody that can't call out a dictator, that's a problem. You know, he should be calling, not just calling Putin out for what happened to Navalny, he should be calling Putin out for the fact that he's got Evan Gersovich as a hostage. He should be calling Putin out for invading Ukraine. He should be calling Putin out for the fact that now they are surrounding the Baltics and Putin's getting ready for his next act. When he said that day, it emboldened Putin. And what we're seeing is Putin's emboldened by Biden, because he senses weakness. He doesn't see any sort of resistance, and that's why he invaded Ukraine. And he's emboldened by Trump, because Trump is not willing to stand up for our allies. Both of those are dangerous. And I can promise you this, Putin would not be doing that if I were president. We know how the Russians are. We know that they cause chaos. We know that they cause distractions, but we never lose sight of how Putin thinks and what his end goal is. And that's the fact that he wants to go after our allies and he wants to make sure he destroys America.
If you were president today, how would you hold Putin accountable for Navalny's death?
One, you just call it out and you remind all of your allies that you do it. But the best way to hold Putin accountable is to make sure that Ukraine wins. I don't think we need to give cash to friend or enemy. I think you always should just make sure that we give equipment and ammunition so that we can hold it accountable. But we should be standing beside Ukraine as they do this. And the reason is, I saw at the United Nations, dictators, thugs, and terrorists always tell us what they're going to do. They're very transparent. We just have to know to listen. Hamas said they were going to invade Israel, and they did. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. It happened during COVID. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it. China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries, and that immediately puts America at war. We are trying to prevent war. This has always been about preventing war.
Well, and especially if you're saying that with Trump's comments from over the weekend that he's emboldening Putin to potentially do more here, which is what the very fear is. You know, you talked about you don't support giving cash to Ukraine, but there is an aid bill in Washington right now that the Senate has approved that has aid for Ukraine in it. But right now, House Republicans are refusing to take it up. And I wonder if you believe that if they don't pass that, if House Republicans block that, do you believe that they're handing Putin a victory after he just killed his loudest critic?
I think the problem is you have to look at the fact that Joe Biden and Congress has never told the American people why they should care about Ukraine. They've never told the American people why they should care about Israel. They've never told the American people the dangers about China. And so when you look at this scenario, what Congress has done has been irresponsible. They've basically told the American people they have to decide between supporting Ukraine and Israel or securing the border. Securing the border is priority number one. But that doesn't mean you can't support Ukraine and Israel at the same time. If we supported Ukraine and Israel and secured the border, that's less than 20% of Biden's green subsidies. The job of a president in Congress is to protect national security. The job of a president in Congress is to protect the American people. And the job of a president in Congress is to prevent war. We have to prevent war by giving Ukraine the equipment and ammunition they need to win, by supporting Israel as they take on the terrorist enemies. And if we do that, there is a reason that the Taiwanese want the U.S. and the West to support Ukraine, because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan.
Republicans are not blocking Ukraine aid, though, because President Biden hasn't explained it to them enough. I mean, he does come out and give repeated public speeches about why he thinks it's important to not let Putin be emboldened. I mean, what do you want House Republicans to do here? Because they're the ones blocking this aid.
Well, I think Joe Biden has not explained that this is preventing war.
But I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene cares what President Biden says.
Well, it doesn't matter. What is the role of leaders in D.C.? They should be telling the American people everything. You over-communicate to the American people. You let them know why they should care. Then they want to be part of the solution. You can't blame Congress if you don't have a leader at the top explaining why this matters. I don't say there are no saints in Washington, Republican or Democrat. At this point, they need to be explaining that this is about preventing war. We have to support Ukraine. If we support Ukraine, that's 3.5% of our defense budget. The Europeans are putting in more than that, and they should. It's their neighborhood. But this is about preventing war. This is about making sure that we don't have to ever send military in harm's way. That's why this is important. That's what the American people want to hear.
You just were talking about Trump's embrace of Putin, and, you know, he's encouraging Russia to attack U.S. allies if they don't spend enough that what he believes they should be spending, what they've agreed to on defense. And you said that he's siding with someone, you know, who is a thug that kills and jails his opponents, his dissidents, obviously talking about Putin. You've also said, though, that you would support Donald Trump if he's the Republican nominee. I wonder how you reconcile those two things, or does it make you uncomfortable that you may have to vote for someone that you say does that?
It doesn't make me uncomfortable when I'm running against him. The whole point of me running is because I don't think Donald Trump should be president. The whole reason I'm running is because I don't think Joe Biden should be president. And neither do 70% of Americans. 70% of Americans don't want to see Trump or Biden. 59% of Americans think Joe Biden's too old and think Donald Trump's too old. We need someone who can put in 8 years of hard work, not making it about themselves, but making it about the American people. That's the focus that we need to have. That's what I'm trying to do. And the party that gets rid of their 80-year-old candidate is the party that will win. There will be a female president of the United States. It will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. If Republicans nominate Donald Trump, it will be Kamala Harris. But if we can go and do what we're trying to do, we're going to make sure that it's me.
Right. But if it's Donald Trump as the nominee, you've said that you would support him. I mean, so that would be supporting someone that you say is a Putin sympathizer.
Well, first of all, I think you have to look at the fact that you can't look at Joe Biden and think that he is in a good mental stable state to be able to lead this country. We can look at him from 2 years ago. He's very different than he was 2 years ago. He's mentally diminished. I think Trump is mentally diminished. You can talk and give me scenarios all day long. I am trying to defeat both of those men because we need a new generational leader. And America has the chance to do this. In a general election, we're given a choice. In a primary, we make our choice. Right now, South Carolina is going to make their choice. Then is Michigan. Then is Super Tuesday states. I'm not going anywhere. I am fighting this because we have a country to save. I'm fighting this because I don't want my kids to live like this. I don't want anybody's kids to live like this.
Yeah.
We have got to start getting the ship right.
Let me ask you about the news today, because we did have a New York judge handing Trump a massive blow. You know, anyone who knows him knows how this would affect him, because it's not just his wallet, it's also his business image, by ordering him to pay this penalty of north of $355 million with interest for engaging in years of fraud by inflating the values of his properties. How damning do you believe this ruling is?
I mean, my biggest issue is I don't want the RNC to become, his legal defense fund. I don't want the RNC to become his piggy bank for his personal court cases. We've already seen him spend $50 million worth of campaign contributions towards his personal court cases. Now we see him trying to get control of the RNC so that he can continue not to have to pay his own legal fees. The problem is that doesn't help us win any seats in the House, in the Senate, or anything else if the RNC is all focused on his legal fees. The RNC is practically broke now as it is. And so this is a bigger issue for the Republican Party. It's not, I'll let him deal with his lawsuits. I haven't paid attention to what the charges are, what he's found. But what I am most concerned about is now he's gone and taken someone from North Carolina. He's made the co-chair his daughter-in-law. He's made his campaign manager the director of operations. He's trying to control the RNC after the fact that he tried to get me out of the race so that he could be the presumptive nominee. All of that is so that he has an arm to pay his legal fees. That's the fear that every Republican should have, because we won't win anything if he goes down that path.
It's so interesting to me, though, to hear you say that you're not paying attention to the criminal charges and the lawsuits. There's a lot of them. I understand it's hard to keep up with so many of them, especially when you're running for president. But I mean, the assumption is that would be a massive liability for him in a general election. You are running against him. And so do you wish that you did make more of his legal troubles? It's the #1 albatross hanging around his neck as a candidate.
I've talked about that multiple times. I talk about the fact that he's going to be in a courtroom all of March and April. I've talked about the fact he's going to be in a courtroom May and June. I've talked about the fact that he said with his own words, he's going to spend more time in a courtroom than he is on the campaign trail. And that is not a reason that Republicans should elect him, because he won't win. You can look at any general election poll. He's down to Biden by 5, by 7. On a good day, it's margin of error. But you look at those same polls, and I defeat Joe Biden by up to 17 points. That's what we're talking about, because that's the focus of, you can name him the nominee. If Republicans decide that he's going to be the nominee, they can do that. But he can't win. He knows he can't win. It's just time for Republicans to realize, if we truly want to change where we're going in America, if Americans want to change where we're going in America, they need to vote in these primaries and make sure that we start to right the ship, because we can't go down the same path with two 80-year-old candidates and think that we're going to be okay. And with Donald Trump, what we've seen is chaos follows him, and we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it.
Do you believe, that chaos, you've said before, rightly or wrongly, but it's his own doing that he has these issues. Is that your belief?
I've always said that chaos literally follows him. You can look at last week, what happened. He lost his case on immunity. They said they're going to try him as Citizen Trump. Republicans lost the vote on Israel. Republicans lost the vote on Mayorkas. Yeah. The RNC chair lost her job, and he had his fingerprints in all of that. That's what happens when Donald Trump deals with it. We lost the House seat in New York.
Do his legal troubles change your calculus about how long you stay in the race? Do you have a mindset that you'll stay longer because he's going to be bogged down potentially in court appearances, and it could change how long you want to stay on the campaign trail?
I'm staying in this because I think we have a country to save. I'm staying in this because I believe in what I'm fighting for. And I'm staying in this because it doesn't matter what anybody else says. We know 70% of Americans don't want to see Trump or Biden in the office. So we are going to continue to be competitive in South Carolina. The day after South Carolina, I'm headed to Michigan. From there, we're doing Super Tuesday states. We did a rally in San Antonio, Texas. Last night, we had 13 people in Dallas, Texas. We were in California before. We're going to continue to fight this as long as we can fight it, because I think that it's that important.
Governor Nikki Haley, it's great to have you here for your first time on The Source. I hope you come back. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Go to NikkiHaley.com and join us.